what's going to happen there. But 20% of the world's fresh water is right out here. Water, many folks think will be the next oil. Wars will be fought over water. The growing economies of the globe right now are very limited by the amount of water, clean, potable water they have. The Indian economy is already kind of slowing down because there's so little potable water in India. And there's all sorts of technological efforts to try to create more, clean water up in India. And China, we hear these horror stories of Chinese, the pollution of the freshwater system. The water cycle is a wonderful thing. It is the reason we are here. Just pick that water up and put it in the sky, and then dump it over there. Pick it up, put it in the sky, dump it over there. A wonderful, wonderful thing that when climate change, as climate change is taking place, the water cycle is getting kind of funky and crazy, and not as reliable as it used to be, or it's overly reliable, as we've seen just happen in Colorado.
And Calgary.
And so all sorts of weird stuff is happening to our wonderful water system. The Great Lakes were at their lowest last year. They've now come back about 8 inches, but they were at their lowest, and there was a wonderful piece in the Atlantic recently. I think it was the Atlantic. No, it was the Milwaukee Sentinel, about maybe the new lake levels are the new normal, for a variety of different reasons. Not climate change being a big one, but not only climate change. So the good news there is that the various governments that are of the area around the Great Lakes have a compact called the Great Lakes Water Compact. So it's the Canadian provinces and then the United States that have an agreement that we will not allow any water to be taken out of the watershed that is not put back in the watershed. That is in response to some really cool ideas that people had back in the day, before this compact was finally put in place a couple of years ago, not very long ago, in the George Bush administration. But they worked on it for about 20 years before they got it. That there were ideas like to come and take big tankers in Lake Superior and fill them up with water and sail them to Saudi Arabia and have them be privatized. There was also a suggestion once, I don't know if it was serious, but I remember reading it in a book called Cadillac Desert, that there was a suggestion once that Lake Huron, the amount of water that's in Lake Huron, is just enough to replenish the Ogallala Aquifer that runs underneath the Great Plains, which is almost, it's drawn way down, and from irrigation from the food system, irrigating land that shouldn't actually be growing what it's growing, etc. And so there was this sort of hint that, well, if we just took the water from Lake Huron and pumped it into the ground under the, that would work. That would save it. That would be, and we have places like Arizona where they have golf courses. So if the rest of the world is really struggling for clean, potable water, and we sit at the edge of 20% of the world's fresh water. All we can do is say thank you and pay a little attention to it. Yeah, the water system. For those of you that don't know this, I don't know, Chicago is the sort of exception to the rule, because we turned our river around. Do you know that Chicago turned the river around? You didn't think so.
The flow of the river.
The flow of the river. The Chicago River flows out of Lake Michigan and down into the Des Plaines, over into the Des Plaines River, and the Des Plaines flows to the Illinois, and the Illinois flows to the Mississippi, and down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. And we turned the Chicago River around right before, or we started the project of turning the Chicago River around in response to a cholera epidemic that happened here right before the World's Fair in 1890. The World's Fair was in 1892, but the cholera epidemic was in 1891 and 90, where 10% of the population died. Why? Because the Chicago River flowed into Lake Michigan, and all of our sewage just went out there into Lake Michigan. All the offal from the stockyards, all of that stuff just, and so 10% of the population of the city died. Kind of a third world experience, right when we were about to invite everybody from the world to see our wonderful city. So, big thinkers decided that the way to fix this was to turn the river around, and so they dredged the river and put locks in at the front end, and then created a canal that and turned the river around, and sent our sewage downstream. The city of St. Louis didn't like that idea, and they sued. They sued Chicago for sending a sewage to St. Louis, and this court case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and St. Louis won. And the Supreme Court awarded them $1. So, you know, Chicago is the exception to the rule. We don't do anything small around here. So actually, Chicago in the Great Lakes Compact is the only place where water can leave the basin and not have to be, the watershed, and not have to be replaced.
But the joke is we get it back in the form of beer though, right?
We get, from St. Louis? Yeah, no, we, yeah, no, we don't. Actually, billion gallons a day comes out of Lake Michigan. And
The other problem with Chicago is that our water system, the kind of draining flood water, and our sewer system are not separate systems, and they really should be, right? And
yes.
it's,
Yeah, we could do sewage as a part of the water thing. Yeah. But yeah, our system, we have a combined sewer system, which means everything in your toilet and everything from the rainstorm goes into the same place. And Stan Hallett, Mr. FESWAW, dedicated a significant part of his life to stopping this gigantic solution to that problem, which is still going on, called the Big Tunnel.
yes.
Where we have this giant bunch of stuff underneath the city where that water all that icky water goes, and then when rainstorm's over, they pump it back up and clean it and then send it down to St. Louis.
But I love what Stan said about that. That way we have a pipe big enough so that when Chicago goes down the drain, we're good.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Yeah. Yes, one of the many things Stan said about that. We once went to go see, I once went to take my students with Stan out to we have the world's largest sewage treatment plant here in Chicago too. We have the world's biggest everything. It's very penile, I think. We like to have the biggest everything. Anyway, so we went out to the world's biggest sewage treatment plant, and well, first thing, two of my students barfed immediately because the smell is like, once you smell that smell, once you get into a sewage treatment plant and you smell it, It's like you'll never forget it. And the two people just threw up. But then they figured out that the person who was there with us was Stan Hallett, who was this great enemy of this giant system, and they escorted him out. So, but we only went to go see the giant sewage treatment plant once, but you only need to see it once. But yeah, so. Okay, we'll just take a quick break. I'll take some questions. I'm chunking you. What do I do? Turn this.
On the right and rear side, there's a standby switch.
This one?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's red.